Welcome back, Fantasy Fiction Fanatics. It's great to see you again, and I hope you're doing well. Today we are going to be going over the next set of chapters for Castle of Wizardry. We are getting very close to the end of this book. After this, we'll only have one more class for this particular volume. There's only about 4 more chapters left after today, and then we'll be transitioning into our final book of the series. So I hope you're enjoying it, because I am definitely been enjoying revisiting this world and chatting about with you and really diving in and seeing what this book is all about. So today we're going to be talking about chapters 19 through 23. And I have had some corrections on how I say Garon's name. I've had the correction that it is Garion, and I have had this correction for a little bit off and on, but I just kind of forget about it when I'm just going and talking and thinking about all the things I want to say, since I'm used to thinking about his name as Garon versus Garion. But I'm going to try my best to fix that and pronounce his name correctly for you guys. So please bear with me, but I'm going to try my best to be a bit more conscious of it. And thank you for those of you who are helping correct me and my pronunciation. All right, let's go ahead and dive right into the recap. So we actually have quite a few things that go on in this set of chapters. Belgariad is still over with the Fenlings and being asked to give them speech, and he ends up going ahead and doing that. He convinces his Master Aldur to help him with this endeavor, and does grant the Fenlings the power of speech. At least the power to learn speech. They have to do that on their own to actually learn and be proficient in it, but he grants the capabilities for their bodies to actually function and be able to talk if they wish to. And then they are able to leave that area and move on fully into Drasnia. Silk loves Drasnia, as we can all tell, and they end up being detained by Queen Porine, who has noticed that they have entered the area, and they stay the night with her after convincing her to not turn them over to Poledra. But Silk is having to see his mother, since she is staying there as well at the moment. And he is very, very sad after visiting his mom, and they spend the night where he is just a drunken mess, but he does seem to kind of recover himself the next morning when they set out again, and slowly but surely becomes a bit more of himself. And as they're traveling along, Belgariad ends up talking about Poledra and who she was originally, that she was a wolf, and how they ended up getting together, and kind of her story a little bit. And Garon just can't imagine falling in love with a wolf, even if that wolf then could become human or become other shapes. And so Belgariad decides, okay, well, you need to understand what changing shapes mean, and exactly how to progress to be able to think about it, you have to be able to experience it. So he teaches Garion, sorry, I'm already catching myself, Garion to turn into a wolf, and they go running for a while, where Garion does meet Poledra and her spirit, and she talks to him and explains a little bit about Belgariad's feelings, as well as just saying hello, telling him that she loves him, that kind of stuff. So he gets to meet her and ends up experiencing this new way of thought of being a different animal, being a different shape, but how that doesn't change you as a person. And then we switch over to Sinedra and Poledra, where they are destroying the castle because they left. The boys left. Poledra is the one that's first destroying things and blowing things up, and then Sinedra finds out the reason she's blowing things up and decides to go trash her own room. I think it's very funny to see that little parallel there. However, once Sinedra learns why Garion had to leave, not that it was to jilt her, but to, go and destroy evil, she ends up being very worried about him, wondering how he's doing, if he's going to come back. And during that time, she learns that her amulet that she was given allows her to hear people speaking in different areas of the castle. And she masters the power to be able to choose which conversation she hears, and she listens in on the kings that are debating how to raise this army in Garion's place. And Sinedra decides that she is going to be the one to do that she has that skill, and presents herself to the kings and gets them on board with her stepping up to rally the troops around her. And she commissions some armor to be made for her presentation that she is putting on for herself. And that is where we end, along with Polgara being interested in Sinedra's idea. So hopefully that you're enjoying it. Hopefully you are liking where we are going. Hopefully you are interested to see where this ends up and where this book is going to end, because obviously we still have one more book to go, but where this particular book is going to stop us will be super interesting to find out. And let's go ahead and jump right into our topics. I actually have a little bit of an interesting class today in the fact that I really want to talk about 3 different characters today, and those are my main topics, is characters versus kind of concepts, because we do have some good character building on some lesser built characters, I feel like, in this section that I really want to go ahead and dive deep into. Okay, so I think the first person I want to talk about is going to be Poledra. And we've seen her a couple times at this point. We saw her back when she was first conjured up to help Belgariad in that battle, and it really tore Belgariad up inside. He was very, very upset afterward. We had that mention of the fact that Polgara has somehow communicated with her mother, and then in the previous set of chapters we see Polgara discussing stuff with Poledra's spirit, and that she didn't need to call her up or anything like that. She just went and had a chat with her. And now we finally have her meet Garion and interact with Garion. So we have like her officially in the story now, instead of her just being somebody that was from the past that passed away. She is now fully in this story, not as like a main character or anything like that, but she has made several appearances, and she has even talked to several of our characters, and she has presented herself as a little bit more of a character within the story. So I just thought, especially since we learned a lot about her in this section, that it would be important to kind of go over her, talk about how she is presented and what kind of aspects we're getting from her. So she, like I said, she shows herself to Garion here, and this is after he learns exactly who she was. So Belgariad talks about how originally she was a wolf who, when he was in wolf form, was out to gather the gods because of the orb being stolen, and she was in a very much a mating frenzy. She was wanting to be with him, and as he passed by, and he took her interest. And after that, she decided, even though he ignored her and did not be with her or anything like that, she wanted to win him over. I don't know, based on his description, if for her it was an immediate mating, like a love thing where she just was pulled to him and knew that that was going to be who she was going to mate with. But she followed him around and ended up staying in the tower with him for 1,000 years. This wolf, she-wolf, was with Belgariad, watching him, making commentary, talking about his choices. And when she saw him do the shape-shifting in front of her, she immediately was like, okay, that's how you do it, I will go ahead and do it. So she was a very aware, very smart wolf, one that definitely had much more of a presence and was able to use magic in order to shapeshift into different animals. And she did also really like taking the form of an owl. So we can kind of see how, at least from this beginning portion of the story that we hear about her, is we see why Polgara likes to be an owl. I feel like she gets that from her mom as well. The fact that she was originally a wolf is the matching to Belgariad, because as Poledra said, he has a lot of wolfish qualities. She feels that he was a wolf born as a human. So we see that that's, the connection that Belgariad and her have is the wolf aspect, and then the connection that Belgara has with her mom is that the second favorite form that her mother loved was being an owl. So we do see how this person, this one person that we didn't really know much about, but just learning a little bit about her, we can see the connection she has to her husband as well as to her daughter, and how that influenced both of them a little bit. And then we find out that then after a while she went away, just enough to make Belgariad miss her and realize that he liked having her around after 1,000 years. And then she shows back up in the form of a human and is like, okay, now it is time for us to be together. I've gave you your time, and I have figured out which form I need to be in order to be with you and to mate with you. So, as she said, wolves mate for life. And so since she originally is a wolf, and since Belgariad is very wolfish, we understand why his hurting for her, even after 3,000 years, is so strong and so deep to the point where he can't even see her spirit and not be devastated by her loss all over again. So it really shows how deep the connection between Poledra and Belgariad is, and really explains a lot about Belgariad's feelings toward her, a lot of how his connection to her is so deep. I also think it's very interesting because the fact that he seems very wolfish to Poledra, and the fact that he likes being in a wolf form. And then Geryon, when he was young, used to call him Mr. Wolf, and that was kind of the name that he took on, which is also kind of explained by all this together, is kind of explaining a little bit more of a picture about Belgariad, about Geryon's past and family, Polgara's family, and where she comes from. So I feel like just this one little picture of Poledra's background and who she was and how she came to be with Belgariad really gives us a lot of information that processes down to like, okay, this is where this fits, this is where this fits, this is the connection, this is this, so we really feel Poledra's personality and her slot that she fits into in all of this really fills in several blanks and makes these connections and such. So one little character that we only know minimal about, that the second you learn a little bit more about them, really pulls everything kind of together and fits them in better slots of understanding for us as a reader. The thing that I think is super sweet is that she shows herself to Geryon in this moment, the moment when he is taking on the form that she is from. And she's the one that really helps show him that the form does not matter. She's the one that's in front of him and is like a wolf and then a human, and is like, does this really change who I am? No, not really. And that's what really makes it click for him, that, hey, it doesn't really matter the shape of a being, it is more about the essence of a being. And I think that's going to be very, very important for Geryon to know, and a very important life lesson for him to have learned. And I hope that that will then show itself later in the story. And I just also thought it was the sweetest thing is when, unprompted, I mean, obviously he asks if he can call her grandmother, and she's like, well, that's not really correct term, but sure. But then before he runs away to meet back with Belgariad, she just tells him, I love you. Now, unprompted, he doesn't say it first, it's not expected, or they don't have like this connection that you would think that would come out right away, but instantly she just tells him how much she loves him, and Geryon says it back. And I think that's a super, super sweet moment, that he gets to meet his grandmother, that he gets to understand Belgariad a bit better. We, as a reader, get to understand Belgariad a bit better. And then they have this sweet moment of just before he leaves, she tells him that she loves him, and he says it back. So Garion's family is growing bit by bit. At first he felt like he had nobody except his Aunt Pole, and then now he found that he had a grandfather, and then he finds now that he has a grandmother that he can interact with. So even though his parents are gone, he does have some family to lean on and to depend on, and who will be there for him always. Next, I'd like to talk about Silk. And I don't know if I've actually done a discussion much about Silk specifically in the previous sections at all. If I have, maybe it was only like once, maybe twice. Silk is someone who is an excellent character, but he's definitely a hard character to pin down because he's got all these different roles, he's got all these different things that he's doing that he can do. He's an excellent spy, he's an excellent friend, and he's got a lot of personality, but we don't focus on Silk a lot, and I think that's just part of the nature of who he is. But we don't really focus extremely on his past, we don't really focus extremely on one particular thing that he has done, other than, you know, him trading and bartering for their best goods and sneaking around and knowing information. So he, like, you know, any good spy, kind of flies under the radar, even though you know he's there and even though you enjoy him. He doesn't really stand out much with a lot of like character building on his behalf. Like, we find out things about him, but it's not like he's got like this huge growth within the story. We don't have like a huge arc that deals with him or anything. He really is just the ultimate supporting character that everybody wants to have as their friend and support. I think he's a really great character, so don't get me wrong. That's not what I'm trying to say. I'm just trying to say is that he is not someone that is always at the forefront of the action kind of parts. But this one, he's got a little bit of action of his own in the fact that we learn a little bit about who he is and his past, and the fact that he loves his mom so much, but she also causes him so much pain. And we don't totally understand fully the extent of what happened or why this pain is quite so deep for him, except that he loves his mom so much, and she had this terrible thing happen to her, where she is just completely disfigured and blind now from this sickness that had been going on in the area. And so now he has to see that terrible thing that happened to her every single time he looks at her and interacts with her, and has to try and hide it from her because everybody hopes that she doesn't truly understand how she looks at this point. They try to hide, at least they're hoping that they're hiding the fact that she was once, you know, the most beautiful woman in all of Drasnia, and now she is a very disfigured mess, and we don't understand fully what that implication is for his mom. We obviously know that she is blind, she obviously needs a little more help, and she can't be what she once was, but we don't know if this has affected, you know, her marital relationships, that kind of stuff. Like, we don't know exactly how it's affected the rest of her life and how people interact with her. But Silk really hurts deep that his mom has been put through this much, and it's hard for him to even be around her just because he is so sad when he looks at her and just feels that pain that he could not save her from that. So he completely gets drunk, like completely and utterly wants to just forget all of the world and all his problems. And so he is just chugging it down. And he even ends up crying all over Porine, someone who he is really in love with, even though he can't have her, and even though she does not have the feelings back, and that is very clear in this section, is that you finally get the answers that she doesn't feel the same way about him. And that's too bad because she cares about him so much, but it is not a romantic caring. And he just cries all over her, and all she can do is comfort him. And Geryon is there witnessing him crying and being comforted, and is in a way comforting him from afar by being there for him and just standing there in the vicinity while Porine hugs him. So it's a very heartbreaking section, even if it does kind of bring Silk's past into the light. It brings us a little bit more closer to this character and to understand who he is and how he has become who he is today. And we understand a little bit more about his relationship with Porine, how it's very unrequited. Even if she does care about him, she doesn't love him. So it really makes me feel in this section like just poor Silk, because his mom is, you know, is a reminder of all the things he couldn't give her. It's very painful, so very painful for him. And then 2, the woman that he is in love with is forever out of his reach because she is never going to reciprocate those feelings. So I feel like we really see, no matter how much Silk cares and no matter how great and jovial he is, and we always think of him as someone who has got a lot of sarcastic comebacks, someone who is very reliable and dependable, someone who's very upbeat and cheerful for the most part. And we see him brought so low, and we really see the pain that he has deep within himself that he does not let show on a regular basis. Now, the third character I'd like to talk about is Synedra. Now, I have talked about her a little bit in the past. We've kind of seen how she's behaved since she's joined this group. We've seen her growth and or minimal growth, I would say. Sometimes I feel like, oh my gosh, she's growing, she's gonna be a better person, and then she does something and I'm just like, oh man, she's not. She missed the whole point of all that. Like, it went just down the tube. So I feel like here is another moment where I'm like, is she progressing? Are we gonna see her be not selfish? And then I'm like taking a step back and I'm just like, well, I'm not sure yet. We're gonna have to wait till we get a little further into this to decide on that matter. So when we start off this section, we still see her very self-centered self. If that makes sense. She immediately assumes that because Geryon is gone, that she has been jilted at the altar, and that it doesn't matter what excuse it is that he left. It's a reflection on her and the fact that they didn't get married yet. So she takes Polgara's example of destroying everything and goes to her own room and starts destroying everything. And it's like, is this really the most effective way to vent your anger? But I do think it is very funny because they have like that similarity of like both of them have the same kind of temper. Which I think is funny because Polgara, though she does have that bit of a temper, she's usually more of like a calm, level-headed person that's kind of blunt, but usually doesn't go into a rampage. But right now she is rampaging by the fact that she is now stuck at this aisle trying to lead things, and that her dad tricked her into that by just taking off without a word. And then Synedra's like, you have the right idea, I'm mad, let me just go and trash my own room. I feel very bad. Luckily, at least Synedra, saves the bird. That's a little selfless. She saves the glass crystal bird that Geryon gave her that she loves so much. But I just think, oh my gosh, like, why is everything a reflection on you, Synedra? But I do love the fact that when she is explained the real reason that he's gone, Queen Lila is just like, how dense and self-centered are you? Like, straight to her face, blunt as all get out, and it's just like, could you be more self-centered and more dense? Like, do you not understand what is going on here? The world does not revolve around you, Synedra. And it is a little bit of a wake-up call. Synedra's had a couple wake-up calls in the moment. But they haven't lasted to where she like thinks, oh hey, like this is reality, not about me, let me get over myself. She usually goes back to being her self-centered ways. So we're gonna see if this is actually gonna make it through her brain that the world does not revolve around her. Or maybe we won't. But I do see this little pattern of like where she just has this instant thought of like, this is the way things are because everything is against me. And then it's like when you get the explanation of actually what's going on, she's like, oh, I was so wrong and I'm not gonna apologize because that's just means I have to say I'm wrong. I feel like this is a little bit of one of those moments. She's also very status oriented, status centric. She is like making the diagram of who she's going to be the equivalent of or over for all the other royalty in, you know, when she gets married to Garion, when it's official. She's like, oh, I'm going to be above this person, and I think I'm at the same level as, and it's like, come on, Sinedra. Status is not the only thing in this life, but again, that is Sinedra. That is very much her personality. So we see that she's kind of starting off at the same point that she usually starts off at any moment that something goes wrong. We still see that she is very much in her traditional thinking of like being from Poledra. I see it in my mind. I can't pronounce it all of a sudden. But her being from there is very much status driven. She's very much royalty, so she gets everything she ever wanted. Very spoiled upbringing. So we still see that is her core nature. At least that is still her core nature at this moment. We will see if the events that progress going on will officially change her mentality or not. We'll see. It is nice that she at least starts to worry about Garion and understands the severity of what he's undertaking. Even if she didn't really believe in Torak and all that, at least she's finally getting it through her head that this is real and that he's going into danger. And then she does, after she hears the king's dilemma about how to unite certain kingdoms because of their lack of wanting to help, she decides that she's going to step up and be the one that leads these armies into being one giant army to face Torak. Will this be... The question for me is, will this be something that's a permanent change toward wanting to do something real? Because it seems at the end here of this little moment, like at first it's like, oh my gosh, she's stepping forward, she wants to do this, she is very good at conniving and very good at getting what she wants and how to present things that way she gets her way, which is not a bad thing in this situation, especially since so many obstacles are against her by being a woman and not being fully married and all this kind of stuff. So that is good for that. But then at the end, when she makes this armor, which I do understand the concept of the look of being the armor, of it being a way to unite them and to be that kind of front for it, even if she's not battling herself. But she does present herself to the kings afterward, where it's like, oh, look at my cute new outfit I got. Like, doesn't this really suit the needs of everybody? And the way she presents it at the end seems a little bit like she's not taking this 100% serious. So, at least in my opinion, it kind of dips between like, are you actually taking this serious? Are you not? What is your thought process, Sinedra? Are you actually going to step up to the plate and you're going to decide, hey, I'm going to be the one in charge? Right now you think you're going to be the one in charge, but I'm going to be the one in charge, and I'm presenting it that way. Or is this really her just thinking like, hey, I'm going to get the credit for this, even if it's more of a fun role to play at this moment. So I do admire her being willing to step up and to take that motion and to know what needs to be done. This is actually where she excels, of like knowing how to get people to do what she wants and to kind of connive people. And that's going to work for inspiring loyalty for people, inspiring them to follow behind her and to go into battle. That could be a very great skill, and I think she does have the right idea with getting this armor. But we will see if this is going to be something that she takes truly seriously and can translate to battle and loyalty and troops, instead of just, wanting her to get her way of whatever it is that she's searching for. So it'll definitely be very interesting to see how this progresses with her. I do think, however, that it is funny that the kings think they are going to use Sinedra as a figurehead. Because, let me tell, especially, and also Geryon, they also mentioned that about Geryon, and it's like, I know he doesn't have the best experience, but Geryon's not going to let you just do whatever you want and railroad over him. He's already shown that he does not let people make decisions for him if he doesn't want to make that decision. But with Sinedra, she is like a hidden, I don't know the term would be that I'm looking for, but she's kind of like that hidden bomb or something where, like, the second you step on her, she's going to blow up in your face because they think she's going to be a figurehead. And I feel like, no, I don't feel like, I know that if she decides to be serious about this and to really step up to the plate and be the leader of this army, that no one is going to make her do anything she doesn't want to. She is going to stand firm. She will definitely not let them make decisions for her, which Anheg is like, I'm only following her if she doesn't make any decisions and she's just there for show. But in reality, he's not going to get what he wants, because the second she gets serious about this and decides that she is going to be in charge, she will be in charge and nobody else will be able to deny her. So I do feel like they've got another thing coming for them. That much I do know for sure. Let me know what you think about the 3 different characters that we talked about today in depth. Let me know what your thoughts, your feelings are on them. If you think I missed anything, if you feel like I got anything wrong, I would love to hear your opinion and to know what you think of these different people. As well as if you think I missed anything from this section that you felt like was something more we should have talked about, please let me know. I'd be happy to have a discussion with you. But let's move on to our last little section, which is, of course, the nitty-gritty. So the thing that I want to mention first that is so great and is a relief to all of us, I'm sure, is that Belgariad shows that he still has his magic. And that's a big yay and a win for everybody. But I think it was super interesting to witness Belgariad's reaction on it, because he has this, like, delight almost, at least it seems kind of like it's a delight of, like, the idea that he could have not had it. Or maybe, this is where, like, I'm not totally sure if it's delight or maybe it's fear. Like, maybe he has this moment of, like, realization that he could have not had his magic, and where he's kind of, like, having that laughing of, like, oh my gosh, the relief of, like, that didn't end up being the case. I can't quite tell. At first it's like the possibilities, like, he's such a surprise, and it's so like, oh my gosh, like, I didn't even cross my mind that I didn't even have any magic. I just didn't need to use it yet, and yet he realizes, hey, it could have had that effect, and he has this laughter, and it seems almost like the delight at the idea of it, or maybe it's the fear of the idea of it. It's really hard to say, but I felt like his reaction was very interesting. And I do feel like, at least in that moment, that Vordai, who was asking for the Fenlings to be given the speech, once she found out about Belgariad and his magic, she was like, okay, you have to stop him. I'm sorry, I was not trying to do this. That's more important than anything I was asking about. And really does show that she is a caring person in that moment. I do feel like we see that instant switch of, like, not even hesitation or not saying, hey, no, he's going to do it anyway. She really did want to protect Belgariad and was only asking because she felt like there was nothing wrong with asking of that. At that moment, there was no consequences for anything other than getting what she wanted. So I do feel like that shows the goodness that Vordai had as well. So I liked that moment. Also, another thing that kind of came up, this was not really came up in the sense of, like, something happened in this section, but I just had a moment of thought of, like, we haven't really mentioned the fact that Belgariad, I'm still on, like, Belgariad in my mind, Mandoralin, is officially Sinedra's, like, personal knight. Like, we had this whole moment where she kind of like ordains him, and it seemed to be a very big deal. But we aren't witnessing anything to do with that in a long time. So when she was using her amulet and like talking to people, she heard Mandaralin on there, and I just had like this moment of like that clicked in my brain where I was like, we haven't seen that in a while. So I do wonder when that's going to come into play, whether it will come into play with the army being gathered, whether it's going to be to come into play at a later date. But what was the significance of them being connected? We haven't really gotten that in a while, and we haven't gotten the knowledge of what exactly that will mean in the future. And then last but not least, I just want to mention one last time is that I just really liked the similarities between Sinedra and Polgara. I just felt like that was such a beautiful moment, because it's like Polgara seems like the exact opposite of Sinedra, though she does have a temper on her. She's not someone that is prone to like tantrums, and usually she's the one that's like, okay, Sinedra, are you done with your tantrum? Let's move on. But then the second she finds that note, she's just destroying and blasting everything, and then Sinedra is just like, oh, what's wrong? Oh, Garion's gone? Let me go destroy my room. And then they also have those moments where it's like they don't even like acknowledge each other because they're both in this rage state, and they're just like, we can't come into contact right now. It's just not happening. So I just thought it was really, really funny moment, and really fun to watch this new side of Polgara and how much it matches Sinedra. And you just see that they're really kind of the same kind of personality in some ways. So that's it that I had for this section. Hopefully you guys enjoyed what I talked about. Again, let me know if there's anything I missed, anything you think I got wrong, anything you think I need to delve more into. Whatever it may be, I would love, love, love to hear from you. So please do that. Before we move on to wrapping things up, let me just go over the trivia question. Thank you again to everyone who participates. I really appreciate it and enjoy playing with you guys. This week's question was about what fantasy creature is a winter version of a Bigfoot, and the answer is a Yeti, though I would have taken Abominable Snowman as well, since they are basically kind of interchangeable. And so Paul, Landon, Brendan, and Roast Beef all got it correct. Thank you so much to everyone who participated and played. I really appreciate it, and I love seeing your answers and seeing who gets it right or not. If you would like to participate in the trivia question, or at least check it out and see what kind of questions are up there, you are welcome to go to the blog, fantasyfictionfanatics.net. It is going to be over on the right-hand side. If you scroll down just a little bit, it'll be there for you to answer if you're on desktop. If you're on mobile, you will probably have to scroll almost all the way down in order to see the question, but it will be there. And then you can just type in your answer, and you will find out in a week how you did. Also, while you're over there checking out the trivia question, if you would like more content from me, you are welcome to hang out over on the blog and look at the posts that I make over there. I've got book reviews, I've got book suggestions, I've got some personal fantasy related topics, I've got Fanatic Deliberations, where I talk about different ideas about reading, about fantasy in general, about movies, and lots of other stuff over there. Anything that's fantasy related, not just book related, is going on over there. So hopefully you find something interesting that you want to read about and discuss over there as well. I'd love to hear from you on anything on the blog as well. Also, my newsletter is on there, which I don't plug enough as I probably should. If you are on over at the blog and you would like to join my newsletter, you are welcome to. I send out an email once a month just catching up with you guys, a little bit of behind the scenes of Fantasy Fiction Fanatics on there, as well as just updating everybody on what came out the previous month for all the videos, blog posts, and everything like that. So if you want to keep updated with what's going on with the channel, with behind the scenes things, a little look behind how I do things, how I make these videos, as well as just some little personal things for me, then go ahead and join there as well. I would love to be able to interact with you guys through the newsletter as well. If you would like to have a chat with me or whatever, you are welcome to comment down below on this video. I'll get back to you there. Or if that doesn't work best for you, you can also find me at Facebook, which is /fantasyfiction1. You are also welcome to find me at Twitter, which is at fantasyfiction1. I do update over there and post things, so if you want to follow me on either of those, that will give you some updates on what's going on, and if I'm ever not making a video or whatever, I do post on there, so that way you'll know why I'm out. Also, if you'd like to join our Fantasy Fiction Fanatics Discord, you can talk to both me as well as your fellow Fantasy Fiction Fanatics. So I really recommend going over to the Discord. Then you can have a bunch of different people who love fantasy just as much as you, talking and chatting. We're already have several people over there chatting and getting to know each other, as well as getting to enjoy sharing their love of fantasy together. We've had a lot of talk about Wheel of Time since that Wheel of Time series came out. Lots of people who love that over there, so if you want to talk about that or anything else, as well as not fantasy related things, we do chat about a lot of different things, and we would be happy to have you join us and share in your passions. The link for that will be down below. If you'd like to join, we'd be happy to have you. And I think that's about it. So I guess I will just see you guys in the next one. I hope you guys enjoy all the reading that you're doing lately. Bye.